The Council of Ministers has finally gained a full shape as the cabinet was expanded today with the induction of 2 new ministers. Since Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal assumed the country's top executive post on 25th December last year, the Council of Ministers has been expanded for 11 times. Now the total number of ministers has reached 22, while there are 3 state ministers in the government. Good evening, I'm Sarah Chitrakar and these are the headlines of the hour. National Assembly approves of the government's programs and policies with majority. Premier Dahal assures that the government will take diplomatic steps to address border issues. The cabinet gains a full shape as Birendra Prasad Mahatto of Janata Samajwadi Party appointed the Minister for Forest and Environment. Pramila Kumari Yadav appointed the State Minister for Science and Technology. India makes cough syrup testing mandatory before exporting their products starting June after some Indian-made syrups were linked to deaths in the Gambia and Uzbekistan. And Nepal and India enter into the semi-final of Kava Women's Volleyball Championship. The journey for Bangladesh and Sri Lanka ends. Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal has assured that the government will take diplomatic steps to address the issues of border. Addressing the questions raised by lawmakers on the government's programs and policies at the National Assembly today, Premier Dahal clarified that the regions in Darchula's Kalapani, Lipu Lake and Limpiathura encroached by India belong to Nepal and that the government was clear about the need for a diplomatic approach to resolve the issue. The Prime Minister also highlighted on the importance of taking steps based on evidences. Speaking on the overall programs and policies for the next fiscal, Premier Dahal said the government was clear about ensuring good governance. The programs and policies has been approved by the National Assembly. Meanwhile, at the House of Representatives, discussions on the government's programs and policies continued today. Lawmakers presented their thoughts in favor and opposition of the programs and policies. Those from ruling Nepali Congress and Maoist Centre lauded the government plans, saying that they would be able to address the current economic woes while lawmakers from opposition said the plans fall short in solving the country's problems. Discussions on the programs and policies for the next fiscal began from Sunday. The cabinet has been given a full shape following its expansion for the 11th time. Birendra Prasad Mahatto of Janata Samajwadi Party has been appointed the Minister for Forest and Environment. President Ramchandra Paudel appointed Mahatto as the Minister for Forest and Environment today following the decision by the Council of Ministers and the recommendation of the Prime Minister. Likewise, another leader of Janata Samajwadi Party, Pramila Kumari Yadav, has been appointed State Minister for Science and Technology. With this, the government led by Pushpa Kamal Dahal now comprises of 22 ministers and 3 state ministers. The cabinet has been expanded on 11 occasions since Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal assumed the country's top executive post on 25th December last year. The government of Madhya province has replaced a leader from Janamat Party who was given the portfolio of Ministry of Agriculture as it expanded the provincial cabinet by including Nepali Congress and Unified Socialist in the government. The Madhya province government has appointed Krishna Prasad Yadav, the parliamentary party leader of Nepali Congress for the province, as the Minister for Physical Infrastructure and Birendra Kumar Singh as Minister for Health and Population. Parliamentary Party Leader of Unified Socialist Govinda Nyupane has been appointed as the Minister for Land Management and Agriculture. Province Chief Hari Shankar Prasad Mishra administered the oath of office and secrecy to the newly appointed ministers earlier today. Meanwhile, former Minister for Land Management and Agriculture Basanta Kushwaha and former Social Development Minister Surita Shah are still in the government with their portfolios yet to be determined. A new world record has been set at the world's highest mountain, Mount Everest, today. Kamirita Sherpa of Solukhumbu, breaking his own record, reached the summit at 9:23 a.m. today for the 28th time. According to 7 Summit Treks, this is Sherpa's second ascent of Mount Everest of the season this year. Prior to this, he successfully summited the peak on 17th May last week. Kamirita ascended the mountain after Pasang Dawa Sherpa of Pangboche Solukhumbu tied knots with his record of the most ascents by climbing the mountain for the 27th time. 7 Summit Treks has said that Kamirita Sherpa scaled the mountain twice during the season to maintain his record of the most ascents of Mount Everest. Kamirita Sherpa, a resident of Thame in Solukhumbu, is a senior guide at 7 Summit Treks. Kamirita, who was born on 2nd January 1969, had scaled Mount Everest for the first time in the year 2051 of the Nepali calendar. 60% of construction works of the building of the Federal Parliament in Singadarbar has been complete. The Minister for Urban Development, Sita Gurung, has given a deadline until the month of Asoj of the Nepali calendar to complete the construction of the building. During inspection of the construction site earlier today, Minister Gurung directed the contractor company Tundi Sek JV to complete the construction of the building by the Nepali month of Asoj. Gurung has directed to raise the number of workers, if required, to complete the building within the deadline so that the winter session of the Parliament could be held in the new building. Minister Gurung clarified that the deadline cannot be extended at any cost. The contractor company that had received the contract in 2019 with a target of completing the project within 3 years has achieved just 60% progress after almost 4 years. The government had contracted Tundi Sek JV for the construction of modern building for the House of Representatives, National Assembly, including common lobby, Parliament Secretariat, VIP room, library and canteen. The investment cost totaled to over 5,672,000,000 rupees. Likewise, Minister Gurung has inspected the building that was constructed in capital's Ichangu to relocate land squatters. The government had constructed a building to accommodate 230 families with a view to relocate the land squatters residing at the banks of Bagmati River in Kathmandu. However, the building has remained vacant as the land squatters have refused from being relocated at the building. Time now for our segment, Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
Here's the question: why has the provision of providing 10% beds at hospitals free of charge not been implemented? Your options are A, lack of monitoring, B, defying the law, and C, not aware of the provision. Voting is on. Type any WS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Time now for international update. The Indian government has made it mandatory for cough syrup makers to get samples tested before exporting their products. Starting 1st of June, cough syrup makers will have to get a certificate of analysis from a government-approved laboratory. The rule change comes after some Indian-made cough syrups were linked to deaths in the Gambia and Uzbekistan. The controversies had cast a pall over India's pharmaceutical industry, which makes a third of the world's medicines. The announcement was made by the Director General of Foreign Trade, which said in a notification that cough syrups would be permitted to be exported, subject to the export sample being tested. It also mentioned a list of central and state government laboratories across the country where samples could be tested. Many Indian pharma companies have come under scrutiny for the quality of their drugs, with experts raising concerns over their manufacturing practices. In March, India's drug regulator cancelled the manufacturing license of Marion Biotech, whose cough syrups were linked to 18 child deaths in Uzbekistan. The World Health Organization also issued an alert in October linking 4 Indian-made cough syrups to child deaths in the Gambia. India later said that the medicines complied with specifications when tested at home, but the WHO responded that it stood by the action taken. A Chinese expedition team has reached the summit of Mount Chomolungma today as they look to carry out scientific research on the world's highest peak. The expeditionists departed from the assault camp at an altitude of 8,300 meters at 3 a.m. in the morning and arrived at 8,830-meter weather station, the highest of its kind in the world, after 8 hours of arduous climbing. The expeditionists then divided into two teams. One team completed the upgrades to the weather station after affixing steel ropes, replacing batteries and installing wind speed and direction sensors. The new batteries can work for 45 days without sunlight to ensure stable operation. The other team continued climbing to the summit of 8,848.86 meters to collect ice and snow samples, which will be used for the research of air pollutants, especially new pollutants. The 2023 Mount Chomolungma expedition is part of the second comprehensive scientific expedition to the Qinghai Tibet Plateau initiated in 2017. Since the end of April, a total of 170 scientists have been conducting research on water, ecology and human activities around the Mount Chomolungma region. Meanwhile, family members of late Australian mountaineer Jason Kennison gave an emotional tribute to their son and brother after the 40-year-old died descending Mount Everest after reaching the summit. Kennison, an engineer, embarked on the Everest climb, hoping to raise funds for spinal cord injuries, Australia. He died during the descent from the summit May 19 in the death zone above 7,925 meters, which is infamous for the thin air that can cause sudden high-altitude sickness. Hiking officials said attempts to carry more oxygen canisters from the final camp for Kennison were disrupted by strong winds. Of the 11 deaths on Mount Everest so far this year, 3 Sherpas died in April in an ice block fall on the lower parts of the mountain, and others died due to illness, weakness and other reasons. The European Union was unable to reach an agreement on a new round of sanctions against Russia in their latest discussions among foreign ministers in Brussels. The 11th round of punitive measures discussed at the meeting focused on the implementation of the previous sanctions approved by EU, which aimed at blocking all channels of circumvention and ensuring that the effect of those penalties was not weakened, according to Josep Borrell, EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission. Borrell also revealed after the meeting that the EU has completed its initial goal of training 15,000 Ukrainian soldiers and will double the number of Ukrainian troops by the end of the year. Meanwhile, in response to the result of the discussion, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó said the EU should learn from the previous failed sanctions, noting that Europe is suffering more from sanctions than Russia, and a new round of sanctions would lead to even bigger problems, such as undermining the ability of European companies to export and thereby hurting Europe's own competitiveness. Szijjártó also reiterated that Hungary would not approve the next tranche of EU financial support for Ukraine unless the country removes OTP Bank, Hungary's largest commercial bank, from a list of international sponsors of Russia's war. 7 people were killed and at least 18 were injured after the roof of a school's gymnasium collapsed during a storm in Pichet province, over 300 kilometers north of Bangkok yesterday. Emergency personnel worked through the wee hours of the morning today to rescue injured victims from the wreckage and recovered the bodies of 6 people, which included students, janitors and parents. The death toll later increased by 1 when a 6-year-old boy succumbed to his injuries at the hospital after being rescued. Residents in the area reported that the collapse took place amid a violent storm. Local media also reported that a temporary relief center is being established near the disaster site. Thailand's meteorological department announced the start of the monsoon season on Monday and issued a warning for heavy rain in Upper Thailand throughout this week. The World Health Assembly, WHO, the highest decision-making body of the World Health Organization, WHO, has decided not to include in its agenda a proposal made by a few countries on Taiwan's participation in the annual assembly as an observer. Cheng Shu, China's permanent representative to the United Nations office at Geneva, lauded the move, saying it shows the international community's support for the One China principle. Currently, global health security poses significant challenges, and most assembly member states hope for increased solidarity and cooperation to tackle these issues. Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, has gone against the trend and insisted on Taiwan-related proposals, a political ploy to engage in Taiwan independence separatist activities by hyping up its participation in the WHO. Chen said the DPP refuses to recognize that both sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to one China, unilaterally abandoning the political foundation for the Taiwan region to participate in the WHO. The 76th WHO opened in Geneva on Sunday with a focus on saving lives, driving health for all.
Sports news.
Host Nepal have entered into the semi-finals of the Kava Women's Volleyball Challenge Cup with second consecutive win as they defeated Bangladesh today. Nepal took the first set against relative weaker opponent Bangladesh 25-10, second set 25-8 and the third set 25-9. Nepal has not lost a single set so far in the tournament. India has also made a place in the last four, collecting 6 points. Nepal and India have equal points, but Nepal is in the second position of the Group A points table based on its scores. Meanwhile, with consecutive defeats, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are out of the tournament. Nepal are up against India tomorrow in the last group stage match, the result of which will decide the winners and runners-up of that round. The schedule for one-day international global qualifiers that includes Nepal has been published, based on which Nepal and West Indies are in the same group. The International Cricket Council (ICC) published the qualifiers schedule on its website today, based on which Nepal will play against host Zimbabwe in its first match, which is scheduled for 18th of June. Nepal's second match has been scheduled for the 20th against USA and third match on the 22nd against West Indies. Nepal is in Group A with Zimbabwe, heavyweights West Indies, USA and the Netherlands. Group B has Sri Lanka, Ireland, Scotland, UAE and Oman. Top 3 teams from each group enters into the Super 6, of which the top 2 will enter into the finals and will also make a place in the ICC One-Day International that's slated for October to November in India. Before the global qualifiers, Nepal will play warm-up matches against UAE and Oman on 13th and 15th of June. Coach Monty Desai has already announced a preliminary team under the captainship of Rohit Paudel. The national team will train for 1 week before leaving for South Africa for practice. Nepal had earned its place in the global qualifier, winning 11 of the latest 12 matches under League 2 and maintaining its place among top 3 teams. Nepal has also qualified for Asia Cup, having won the ACC Men's Cup. That's all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.